Okay, welcome back to Chapter 10. We are talking about photosynthesis. This is a topic that you've probably already learned a little bit about. You probably already know plants get energy from the sun and use that energy to make organic molecules. So, plants and other photosynthetic organisms will have special organelles called chloroplasts. Animals do not have chloroplasts. Fungal cells do not have chloroplasts. So we cannot do photosynthesis. So of our eukaryotes, the only cells that do photosynthesis are going to be those species that have chloroplasts. Photosynthesis is the process that converts solar energy into chemical energy within chloroplasts. So there's two parts there. There is absorbing energy from the sun, or the photo part, and making chemical bonds, making sugar that holds that energy. That's the synthesis part. That gives plants and other photosynthetic organisms their energy. It gives them their sugar. They're able to take that sugar and convert it to do everything they need. So they are directly nourished by photosynthesis. But indirectly, even animals and fungal cells are nourished through photosynthesis because we eat plants or we eat an animal that ate a plant. So basically, the base of our food pyramid, no matter what species you are, comes back to something photosynthetic, getting energy from the sun. So plants are what we call autotrophs. That means self-feeders. They can sustain themselves from sunlight. They don't have to eat anything else. Plants don't eat other organisms. Algae don't eat other organisms. They get all of their energy. Everything they need ultimately comes from that energy from the sun. So autotrophs are the producers of the biosphere. They take carbon dioxide and make organic molecules. They take inorganic molecules and make those organic molecules. They don't have to eat anything. Photosynthesis occurs in plants, which is this top picture. It occurs in algae. It occurs in some other types of unicellular eukaryotes and protists. And it can also occur in bacteria. Although bacteria don't have chloroplasts, of course, they are able to do photosynthesis within their plasma membrane or within the cytosol. Heterotrophs do not do photosynthesis. So heterotrophs are going to get their energy from other organisms. We're going to get organic material from other organisms. So the energy we have and the carbon we have all comes from something we eat. We are consumers. Animals like us, we eat other living organisms. Us, these beetles, all of these. George Washington even ate things. We were heterotrophs. Fungal cells like mushrooms are decomposers, and some bacteria are decomposers. That means that they take dead organic material or feces and break it down. So heterotrophs almost always depend on phototrophs for food and for oxygen. In our photosynthetic plants, leaves are going to be the major location of photosynthesis compared to stems or roots or the trunk of a tree. Photosynthesis is really occurring in the leaves. And leaves have on the underside of them stomata. Stomata are little pores. And those pores let carbon dioxide go in. So plants need to absorb carbon dioxide to be able to fix it into sugar. They also have to emit oxygen. So oxygen leaves the cell through those stomata. And then within the cell, in the middle, is the mesophyll. A mesophyll cell is going to look like this. And that's the inner area of tissue where you have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are going to be green, and that is what gives photosynthetic organisms their green color. So chloroplasts have a green pigment called chlorophyll. And chloroplasts are going to be able to undergo photosynthesis. They have the enzymes to capture energy from light, to turn that energy into chemical energy and ATP, and to fix carbon dioxide. Chloroplasts are found in the leaves of plants, and they're going to have two membranes. So we've talked about some other organelles that have two membranes. They have two membranes around them. Each membrane is a bilayer, and they also have an intermembrane space inside of that. Within a chloroplast, we have thylakoids. So you see these green stacks. Each individual little stack is a thylakoid, those individual folded sacs. Granum, or multiple grana, these are a whole stack of grana. A grana is a whole stack of thylakoids. Around our thylakoids are a kind of a jello-ish fluid called stroma. And you can see how these thylakoids or these grana are connected by these little, and it looks like little, bridges between them. Those are called stromal lamellae. Photosynthesis is going to be a complex series of reactions. We're not going to go into it as deeply as we went into cellular respiration, but the overall equation is basically the reverse of what we saw in respiration. So instead of taking sugar and water and oxygen to make carbon dioxide, energy, and water, we're going to take carbon dioxide, water, and light energy. So here energy is being supplied in the form of light. Combine it into one molecule of glucose. Glucose is C6H12O6. 6 oxygens and 6 waters. So the overall change is a reverse of cellular respiration, although individually it is not. We are not using the same enzymes. We're not using the same individual reactions. The way we go from point A to point B is not the same as how we go from point B to point A. And overall photosynthesis is endergonic. It is going to absorb energy. Because it's endergonic, it needs energy to be provided, and that light is going to be providing energy. So energy plus carbon dioxide, that light energy provides the ability for carbon dioxide to become reduced and make this molecule of glucose, of sugar, and water is going to be oxidized to oxygen. When this happens, water gets split. Your textbook goes into discussion about why it matters if water is split and how we know that water is split, how we know that this water is a reactant, isn't just straight going to this product, but it's actually getting split into all three. And I'm not going to discuss all of that. If you're interested in knowing why this matters or knowing how we know that this is what's happening, you can read your textbook for that. And there's also, a lot of information you could find on the internet. But for brevity, we're not discussing that here. So in chloroplasts, the chloroplasts are going to take carbon dioxide and water and split it to go into all the products of photosynthesis. So we're going to take hydrogens from water. So there's H2 times is 12. So there's 24 there's 24 hydrogen atoms. We're going to put 12 of them here and to make sugar, and 12 of them here to make the product water. We're going to take the oxygens from water and turn it into molecular oxygen, O2. And then CO2, we're going to take all of the carbons, are going to turn into the carbon within sugar. And then we have 12 oxygens here, O2 times 6. 6 of those are going to go into sugar, and 6 of those are going into water. Okay, so all that just to say water gets split. And the atoms in water are going to go into all of the products of photosynthesis. So light is a type of energy, and it is the energy that is going to provide the boost for photosynthesis to happen. Light is called electromagnetic energy. Sometimes it's called electromagnetic radiation, and it'll travel in waves. So if you can see my mouse here, it's light is going to travel up and down as a wave. And wavelength is the distance between crests. So here's a high point, wave back to here's a high point, wave back to here's a high point, wave back to here's a high point. Those crests, if you measure between each of those crests, those high points, that gives you wavelength. And wavelength matters because the shorter the wavelength is, the more energy is in that light. So when we have really short light, things like gamma rays and X-rays, they have shorter wavelength, so they have more energy. As it gradually gets longer and longer, we go to UV light and then visible light. So here, just the tiniest bit of the light spectrum is visible. Then we keep getting longer, and we have longer wavelength that has lower energy. So to infrared, microwaves, and radio waves. So these waves that have more energy, UV rays and X-rays, these are rays that you probably want to shield yourself against because that energy could be harmful. Compared to, radio waves, we aren't really concerned if we have radio waves around us in the air because they're a lot lower energy. The wavelength is going to determine what type of electromagnetic energy is there. This is called an absorption spectrum, and all this is going to do is show that as we go through different wavelengths of light, different pigments can absorb different amounts of it. So we have these three pigments. We have chlorophyll A, we have chlorophyll B, and we have carotenoids. These are all involved in photosynthesis. Chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B are really going to be doing the light capture of photosynthesis. And then carotenoids does a lot of light protection, kind of like sunscreen action. So chlorophyll A is really good at absorbing this blue-violet light, and it can absorb some red light. Chlorophyll B is really good at absorbing this more like true blue light and a more orange light. So all of this wavelength, all of those light colors are able to be absorbed by chlorophyll to take that energy. They are going to absorb the light. They're going to take the energy from the light and turn it into the energy to power photosynthesis. So the action spectrum is the effectiveness of different wavelengths to drive photosynthesis. And as a whole, photosynthesis has a broader spectrum than just chlorophyll by itself. And that's because we're using different molecules together. The reason they absorb differently is because they have slightly different structures. So pigments are going to absorb different wavelengths of light. In our photosynthesis, our pigments chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Chlorophyll A is the primary pigment used for photosynthesis, and it absorbs that blue and red light. Throughout your textbook and throughout this lecture, you'll see P680 and P700 molecules. Those are two types of chlorophyll A. P680 absorbs light that's 680 nanometers long. P700 absorbs lights that is 700 nanometers long. So that whole wavelength area is absorbable by chlorophyll A. Then chlorophyll B broadens the spectrum of light that can be used in photosynthesis. And carotenes absorb excessive light that could damage chlorophyll. So as people, we can put on sunscreen, we can sit in the shade or use an umbrella so we don't expose ourselves to too much sunlight, because too much sunlight could be harmful to our cells. It could cause a sunburn, it could cause cancer, it's harmful to our cells. It could also harm plant cells, but plant cells don't have the option to, run inside when it's too sunny. So they protect themselves from excessive light through producing carotenes. One type of carotene is a xanthophyll. So these might be things that you've heard of before. Carotenes typically are going to give plants an orange color. So in the fall, when the leaves start to turn colors, as the chlorophyll is not being produced anymore, that allows the color of the carotenes to shine through, so the leaves will turn orange or red colors. Even things like carrots are orange because of the carotene. That's where carrots got their names. So plants have all of these pigments to maximize how much light they can absorb, because absorbing the light is what gives them energy to do all of photosynthesis. So they want to absorb as much of the light as they can to be able to do as much photosynthesis as they can, to grow as much as they can. So pigments absorb visible light. We just said that, didn't we? Different pigments absorb different wavelengths. The wavelengths that are not absorbed are reflected or transmitted. So those chlorophyll pigments, really good at absorbing red and orange light, really good at absorbing blue and purple light, not really good at absorbing green light. It reflects that green light back to you. So that green light is transmitted. So that green light is what hits your eye. So that is why chlorophyll looks green. So when a pigment absorbs light, its electrons will become excited. And they're not very stable when they're excited. So they'll fall back to their ground state and glow. They will fluoresce. If you were to take a bunch of chlorophyll from plants, just like isolate them, put them in a solution, if you shone light on it, you would see them, you shine light, then turn them off, they're going to fluoresce. Just like, if you break a glow stick and it'll fluoresce. In a plant, the idea is not to just absorb light, get lots of energy, fall back down, fluoresce. Instead, it's going to be absorb light, hold on to that energy and make ATP. Hold on to that energy and make NADPH. Hold on to that energy and eventually make sugar. They're going to do this by capturing those high energy electrons and moving through an electron transport chain. So we just talked about an electron transport chain in our discussion of cellular respiration. An electron transport chain running in mitochondria for cellular respiration. We've got another electron transport chain in chloroplasts that's running photosynthesis. Okay, this video will not play on my computer. I am going to film this when I'm back in my office and post this as a video for you to watch. So I'm going to stop this video here. You need to find this video and watch it, and then watch the last part of the lecture video. Okay? I'll see you later. Bye.